And then they're rolling through this single street. And again, we get hit with probably the most overtly racist part of this movie that was jaw-dropping to me.
This is bad.
Isaiah's like on his own separate wagon or something. He's a cute little black kid. And Yancey says, "Lots of watermelons here, Isaiah." And Isaiah says, "Yes, sir. I'm sure glad I came to Oklahoma." And we're all just like,
"Oh, brother, this guy stinks!"
Yikes, dude.
Big yikes. Yeah, so this was a
you
sign of the
kidding me?
1931 times.
It reminded me of like Chappelle's Show, because there was like that bit when they were like making fun of like WB and like that frog that was like the mascot. He's like,
Mommy, f that frog. And the number WB. I like chicken.
To be honest, just throwing it out there, never understood that stereotype. Watermelon's fantastic.
It is weird.
Top tier fruit. I don't know who doesn't love watermelon. I don't know why we make that a negative stereotype. It's the weirdest thing to me.
Do we have one? Like, white people love this? Is it mayonnaise? Because that'd be weird.
Might be mayonnaise, yeah.
Mayonnaise can't even hold a candle to watermelon.
Dude, if I had to choose between mayonnaise and watermelon, I'm going watermelon.
I'm team watermelon.
Every single day of the week.
Rock a watermelon down, Isaiah. Yes, sir. I'm still glad I came to Oklahoma.
Welcome back, n***ers. Further down the
What is this movie?
The most racist shit ever.
Ow, what's poppin', corn dogs? Welcome back to the 1930s Picture Show. Ow, I'm your host, Jimmy Crack Corn, and across the table from me is my partner, my best pal, my buddy boy, Mr. Nicholas.
Man, let's go see one of those moving pictures this weekend. Man.
Yeah, hop in my jalopy. It's a 2-cylinder. Goes 30 miles an hour. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. We are back after a couple weeks. Happy Oscar week. This is an annual tradition. Last year, we had our inaugural spin the wheel. Best Pictures. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this week we landed on a movie that was from the 4th Academy Awards ever.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's my recollection. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
We're reaching way back for this one.
Yeah. We are doing the Cimarron Challenge this week. We're partying like it's 1931 because we got a 1932 Oscars Best Picture winner of a movie we never heard of, which is our specialty.
Yeah, I mean, when we embarked on this adventure of a podcast, we said we want to watch movies that have been forgotten, not talked about.
Have no clue what the hell it is.
Here we are at Cimarron, my friend.
Yeah, last year we landed on Schindler's List, which was quite the watch. It sparked a awesome podcast. Great episode. Go back and listen to it. It'll be a little bit different microphones.
Forgive the mic quality on it.
Super tough watch, but we got through it, and it was a really good movie. Shocker. This one, however, people say doesn't age well. After watching the quote-unquote trailer, which was just a clip from the movie, I think I witnessed about 3 racist things in the span of 2 minutes from the preview I watched. And I thought, oh boy, howdy. Here we come. 1931.
1931 with the subject matter being in the 1800s.
Yikes.
You know you're about to view some things that aren't going to age well.
Yeah, multiple categories of groups of people are being offended.
Yeah, no one is spared. No one is spared.
Women, Native Americans, African Americans. It's a
Jewish guy
out there.
There's
a Jewish guy.
Yeah, he doesn't fare well.
Yeah, we'll get into it. But like we said, it's Oscars week. So for this upcoming Oscars this weekend, I don't even know what number Oscars it is. It is the 96th.
Wow.
And we are watching a movie from the 4th Academy Awards. That is insane to me. So this is exactly what I wanted. But we're going to make predictions for the upcoming Oscars this weekend.
Boy, howdy. Let's do it.
Same phenomenon as last year. I've probably seen 2, and they're very mainstream. Have you seen any of the movies that are nominated for Best Picture, or like a random one like Best Costumes or anything?
I got to be honest, my man. I've seen movies that have come out in 2023, but they must have been like Netflix movie. No, I have not seen any of these movies that are at the Oscars. And I know it's weird. Actually, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is up for an Oscar.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
I've seen
that
4.
I have seen.
I've seen 4.
Yeah, that I have seen, but I did not see Barbie. I did not see Oppenheimer. Did not see Killers of the Flower Moon. Not because I didn't want to. Going to the movies.
You know why?
I like what we're doing watching these movies.
You know why? Because we're freaking busy doing this shit, man. We're busy grinding out these podcasts. We're ignoring the modern day stuff. People are doing their things, reviewing those movies. We are doing our job, staying in our lane of watching Cimarron and fucking The Adventures of Pluto Nash and Stealth.
The important things.
Yeah. So we're gonna guess who's gonna win. We just handpick specific categories here, but just going in blind. We're going to just rapid fire, just who we think is going to win based on who we think they're going to pander to, or who we think they are going to, whatever movie had like the hype going for it, because it's all just a facade, just like Hollywood. Academy Awards, just a facade. They don't care. They're just getting lobbied.
It's a bad look when people who haven't seen the movies can take a pretty good guess at what's going to happen, just knowing the
leanings. Because we were kind of accurate last year. So
we got some snooty, politically driven, bias driven people voting. I don't even know who votes. Like, how do you become part of it? But yeah, let's run through this.
What's the first category we have here, Nick?
First category we're going to be looking at is Best Actor. We got 5 nominations here. We got Bradley Cooper in Maestro, Coleman Domingo in Rustin. We got Paul Giamatti, friend of the show, from The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright from American Fiction.
Okay, I think I'm gonna give an answer that I think is actually gonna happen, but I'm gonna give my answer. Damn it! I think I'm not seeing any of these movies. I'm gonna go with Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction as my prediction for what I think is actually going to happen. But my true to heart is my boy Marty Wolf, Paul Giamatti, The Holdovers. He's winning. Who do you got?
Gosh, I really feel like this whole, if there's an option to vote for anything from Oppenheimer, Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, or from what I've heard, Poor Things, I have to go with that. So I'm going to have to go with Cillian Murphy and Oppenheimer.
Spoilers, I will be going hard on the Oppenheimer train for my predictions for most of these categories. Besides this
it
one.
Basically brought Hollywood back, right, from the dead. So I think
the Barbenheimer weekend was like the most people went to the movies besides like superhero movies post-pandemic.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
So I think that's going to factor in.
Those 2 unrelated movies like became like a meme and like a kind of a moment in time for like a cultural moment. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So next category we got is Best Actress, except we don't say that. We say Best Actor because we're not sexist, not actresses and actors. Everybody's an actor, you know? You don't call a female athlete an athlete or whatever the hell you'd say. So Best Actor.
No, but you call them waiters and waitresses and stewards and stewardesses.
That's sexist. We're not about that. Look, I don't want to be Cimarron. All right. When people listen to us like 100 years later, 91 years later, they're going to be like, let's just play it, guys. We're on to something. So Best Actor.
No, I say actors and actresses.
I'm changing the narrative. So we have Annette Bening from Niad, I think is what that is.
Okay.
Lily Gladstone from Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller from The Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan from Maestro, and Emma Stone from Poor Things. Who you got?
Oof. So I said I'm going to go big on, I feel like Killers of the Flower Moon was just so, I mean, it was all anybody was talking about in the circles. But I've also heard just crazy good things about Poor Things. I feel like Emma Stone has some star power, obviously being maybe a little more of the, I guess, comedic role growing up, right? In like a lot of like teen movies kind of humor. And now she's kind of taken that turn into nice serious acting, showing her chops. I think she grabs this one.
I was going to say that one too, but I feel like this is going to be one that I just have no idea who they are, what the hell movie it is. I'm going Carey Mulligan from Maestro.
All right. Next category, animated feature film. Our nominations are The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Okay, clear choice for me here. It's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. The only movie I've seen on this list, Elemental, I feel like Pixar just like kind of pumps out these like weird ideas, and like we kind of understand like their formula. And I feel like they always get an Oscar nod every single year, but I don't know. They haven't like, I feel like the last classic that Pixar put out was like maybe Up. I don't know, because a lot of them have been sequels, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not going Elemental. I'm going Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse because I love the first one because I'm a huge Spider-Man guy. It's not going to win. It's not going to win, but I'm going with it.
Didn't Into the Spider-Verse win an Oscar?
Yeah, because it was amazing.
Yeah.
But this one's like a sequel, ends on a cliffhanger. They're going to be like, we did Spider-Man already.
I was going to say, do you think it's like, yeah, we already gave them their flowers. Let's go with something new now. So I'm going to go with Nimona. No idea what it is.
Pneumonia?
The name kind of, you know.
It sounds sickening.
Nimona.
How dare you?
It sounds like a female-led, like Nimona's might be the lead character, sci-fi kind of thing.
It'll probably be The Boy and the Heron, but you're going Pneumonia. I'm going Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Next topic, next category, we have original score. We have, again, 5 nominees. We have American Fiction, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Shout out John Williams. Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Nick, who you got?
I got to go with Oppenheimer here. Again, I think this is going to be, I have to believe that there's going to be a bit of a sweep, you know, for lack of a better term.
I would love to say Indiana Jones because he's our franchise of the year, but I do think it's going to be something different because we know John Williams' tricks, no matter how good he is. I'll go with Killers of the Flower Moon for our best original score.
All right. Next up, we got original song. It Never Went Away from American Symphony. We got I'm Just Ken from Barbie. Yeah, What Was I Made For from Barbie.
Dang,
The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot. And Wazazi, A Song for My People from Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oof. Okay. Feel like the we gotta be serious and hand out a serious accolade might go to Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm Just Ken. It won a Golden Globe, I think. What Was I Made For? I think that's Billie Eilish. I don't think that's gonna win. I feel like it's gonna be one of the serious ones, but since I love Flamin' Hot Cheetos, I'm gonna go with The Fire Inside from the Flamin' Hot Cheetos movie.
I'm going to go with Wazaze, A Song for My People. It just sounds like it might be a little too powerful. Like A Song for My People just really feels like it's like right up the Academy's alley.
If you put that up against I'm Just Ken, like I think people would be offended if we went with Ken from Barbie.
First rule of like being on the committee
what is this,
for
1932?
Don't be too controversial, right? You got to be up culturally. So I think not going with that is a death sentence.
Next category, visual effects. We talk about CGI all the time and our thoughts on it. When we watch movies from the 80s and 90s, we have a great laughable time talking about the CGI, how it holds up. So this year we have The Creator, Godzilla -1. I don't even know what that is.
Apparently it's fantastic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a Godzilla like origin story, but done like the cinematography. Like it's not like your classic
I've never heard of
Godzilla
it.
monster movie.
It's not part of like the main like weird like cinematic universe they're building right now with King Kong and Godzilla.
No, it's
oh, this is from Japan.
Yeah, it's from Japan, like the whole cast, crew, director, writer. It's directed and written by the same guy. And like it's supposed to be like very true to its core kind of thing.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to check that out.
From what I've heard, it's fantastic and well worth a watch. So
we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon. Nick, who do you got for best visual effects?
As much as I'd love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 to get it, but gotta just probably give this one to Napoleon. It just probably fit. I didn't see it, but I'm assuming there's huge epic battle scenes that just really tickle the taint of the Academy. I can't see Academy members loving Guardians of the Galaxy. Unfortunately,
you know what?
They should.
I
hope so.
I'm going with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The visual effects team went crazy on that movie with all the animal animation. It was insane. And that was just such a good movie.
It was great.
I feel like Mission Impossible is kind of just like it's like a bone to throw to the mainstreamers. It's like, here you go.
To even call it Part 1 is like an Oscar death sentence. Yeah. No one wants a Part 1.
And the award for best visual effects, Mission Impossible - Dead Reckoning, Part 1. Doesn't roll off the tongue.
No. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I think, was fantastic. Yeah, the animals in that movie, honestly,
it was insane, dude. It was insane.
I might be getting old, but I watched it on a plane, a very full plane, and I was I was in the middle seat
Oh,
next
no.
to two people, and I was
no.
welling up, like crying, dude. It was so,
It's a sad,
and it's all CGI. I know none of it's real, but it was so
and that's
good.
why. That's why it should win visuals,
I hope
because
they
it has
win.
a grown man crying in the middle seat on an airplane when none of the characters are there. I mean, they're there in mocap suits, but like they're just CGI animals, and it has you welling up. It's winning. It's winning. I'm putting my foot down. Damn it.
I hope I'm wrong. All right, our next category is cinematography. So we have El Conde, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things.
Okay, I said I was gonna go hard on Oppenheimer, but I guess not. I'm gonna go with Killers of the Flower Moon. I feel like that is, I don't know. I'm just gonna go with that.
I hear you there. Like, I want to go heavy
No,
on Oppenheimer.
No, I'm gonna go Poor Things.
Okay.
I'm switching. I'm switching to Poor Things.
I want to go heavy on Oppenheimer, but I part of me does think that it almost blew its load a little early. Oppenheimer came out, big thing, and then you just haven't heard of it.
It blew something in that movie.
A lot of blowing. From what I've heard, just like online buzz, like Killers of the Flower Moon is still has that buzz.
Okay.
But I'm still going to go Oppenheimer.
Next category, costume design.
Oh,
5
hate this
nominees.
category.
First one, we have Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things.
All right, can I talk about this real quick?
Sure.
What are we talking about with Oppenheimer costume design? You didn't design a costume. You just, people lived in, there's pictures of people from that day, and you just put the same clothes that they were wearing back in the 30s.
It's a weird term to say costume design.
Napoleon's the same thing. It's like, oh wow, they designed it. Did they design
And
it?
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Or is that what people were wearing in that time? So on this one, I'm gonna, just for my own sanity, I have to say Poor Things.
Okay.
Because the rest of it is just kind of like oh, Barbie costumes. It's like, that's just the clothes Barbie wore as a toy.
Mm-hmm.
So like, did you design a costume, or did you just make a costume based on something that already existed? So I'm going Poor Things on this one.
Maybe they should call it best costume execution. It would be a little bit better, because they're not,
That'd be
you're right.
great.
They're not creating, I mean, they are technically producing it, but design makes it seem like it's an original concept. I am going to go with Barbie, because although it was clothes made for dolls, technically they don't exist for full grown adults. And I just think, like, I don't know, pink dresses were they were all the rage.
That's fair.
On Barbenheimer weekend.
To your point of picking Barbie, I do think that you heard a lot of buzz of like Barbie getting quote unquote snubbed, and we haven't really seen Barbie as a lot of other parts of these awards so far.
It was a really beloved movie, and it was like we said, it brought people to the movie, so there's like that. So I think it's going to win something. Its best shot is costumes.
I think it's great. I'm still going Poor Things. It seems like right up the Academy's alley, but I could see Barbie getting, only a couple awards, kind of being snubbed, having the uproar, and it'll actually be better for the Barbie brand to be like, we weren't appreciated, because who cares about Oscar awards anyway?
Next category, we're coming up on the last two big ones.
Ooh.
We got Best Director, Jonathan Glazer from The Zone of Interest, never heard of it. Yorgos Lanthimos from Poor Things, Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer, Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Justine Triet, Anatomy of a Fall. Who do you got?
So this one's tough, because I feel like I have to go somewhere. It has to be between Nolan and Scorsese. I'm gonna go heavy Oppenheimer. I said I am, so I'm gonna go Nolan, Oppenheimer.
I am also gonna go with Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer, because this is I was gonna go hard for Oppenheimer, and then I pivoted at the last moment. But for these last two, spoilers, I am gonna go Oppenheimer. Although I could see them doing a pandering award and not giving it to usual suspects, Scorsese or Nolan, and giving it to a person named Yorgos.
When I hear Yorgos, I think of that commercial for, is it AT&T Fiber, where that mom becomes a gigillionaire, and she has that like personal trainer she's like banging. And they're like, he's just using you for your gagillions. She's like, I know. And he's like, I am Yorgos. It's like super Greek.
Well, that's who might win, dude. That's who might win.
And last but not least, Best Picture. So American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest.
Easy call here, Nick. I'm going Oppenheimer.
So I think cinematography goes to Oppenheimer. I think Best Director goes to Christopher Nolan. For Oppenheimer, I think Oppenheimer gets Best Original Score, but I don't think the Academy can resist the feminism of Barbie.
No way, dude. They're not going to do Barbie.
You say that now. You say that now, but think about this. It's like the NFL choosing to show Taylor Swift a lot because you just gained this whole new audience. How many fans of Barbie are going to be watching the Oscars now who would not have normally watched it? This is an opportunity for the Academy to get a whole new demographic of people watching. And if you can get Barbie on there and have them win, you have a ton of females 18 to 35 who are now into it. I think it's just too big of an opportunity for them to pass up. I think Barbie takes this one, man. I think the feminism, the hype, the demographics are just way too much there. And Margot Robbie's up there, crying. The memes happen. It goes viral. It's all set up for it. So whether it deserves it or not, again, haven't seen it. But I think Barbie's just going to take it.
Don't get me wrong. It was a great movie.
I mean, let's be honest. It's a 3-horse race between Barbie, Oppenheimer, and Killers of a Flower Moon. The other 7, congrats for the quote-unquote being able to say nominated. But we all know it's a 3-horse race here.
Maybe Poor Things.
Maybe Poor Things is a close fourth.
Well, I'm saying that they might bring that 1932 energy and nominate something like Cimarron, just like Oppenheimer. So Cimarron is the movie that we watched this week. It's the movie we are reviewing.
Snap back to reality, my friend.
So this movie is directed by Wesley Ruggles, and oddly enough, on
Ruggles.
IMDb it says that he's uncredited as the director, but he was literally nominated for an Academy Award. So it's like, well, I don't know, he wasn't really there. Who knows? Unconfirmed. This movie stars Richard Dix, aka Dick Dix, Irene Dunn, and Estelle Taylor.
That name, dude, Richard Dix is just
Dick Dix,
Richard
dog.
Dix.
I'm surprised he's not on PH,
So
the hub.
Real quick on the quick facts. So Irene Dunn and Estelle Taylor, and there's a few other females. I was actually, and maybe this is why the Academy liked it, but this movie was pretty female led for the most part. Our main guy, Dick Dix,
But
over here was obviously the main character, but most of the lines were for female actresses. So I thought that was pretty interesting
female actors
for a movie from 1931.
They were featured
Actresses.
a lot, but they were not represented that well. So yeah, I did notice that there was a lot of screen time.
I thought Sabra, she became a congresswoman, dude.
Yeah, but she just like complains all the time and is like racist.
But so was like 98% of the population back then. She just fell into the distribution.
I mean, I disagree, but
no one was good in this movie.
This movie had a estimated budget of $1.4 million, which I don't know. Is that the lowest? No, it can't be.
I think was the original Mad Max?
Oh no, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians was 200,000.
The original Mad Max was 300,000. So yeah, we've had some. 1931, 1.4 million is
damn. In the middle of the Great Depression. This movie is why they entered the Great Depression. Balled out on this movie they put the entire American
economy
in this movie. I have written on the sheet that somewhere maybe I found out that it made $868,000. Don't know where I found that from, but we'll just go with that.
I found 1.3 million. I mean, shocker, in 1931,
the Great Depression,
we weren't tracking gross.
We weren't making profits.
There was like a ledger from like RKO Films, like almost like a journal or diary where everything was written, where I think they had like 1.3 million, but companies lie all the time. And we weren't really auditing well in 1931.
Just look at Franchise Pictures, aka the Church of Scientology on Battlefield Earth.
Exactly.
Nick, would you care to read the log line for the 4th ever Best Picture?
Let's do it. A newspaper editor settles in an Oklahoma boomtown with his reluctant wife at the end of the 19th century.
Clear, cut, and dry, and let's see if this movie is going to deliver on that very exciting log line. We will explore that in Plot Talk. Plot Talk. Okay, super old-timey opening. We do open on like a symphony orchestra playing like, I don't know why, like Looney Tunes is popping in my head. And it's like, Cinnamon, or what the fuck is it? Cinnamon? Cimarron by Edna Ferber.
Actually, I think technically it's a Hispanic word, cimarron.
Yo, are you looking at this poster on IMDb? It's hell out of pocket.
No, I'm not. What
is this?
Oh, shit. I'm looking at it.
What the hell is this, dude? This is like, it's not portrait, but it's like a painting. And it's like, is that supposed to be Yancey?
His shirt's kind of half off and he's holding a knife.
Is this like a pirate, like romance movie? Like,
this is terrific as all creation. I guess whatever you got to do to get folks into the theater in the Depression,
showing some man pack there via some paintings.
I never saw this in the movie.
Like the pictures back then would kind of suck, so they're like, painting's the way to go for our posters. The opening credits, we do get reverse credits, and I did shout out how I hated this in Beyond Thunderdome, but I do actually really like the way they did it on this one because they have like these moving portraits because they show all the actors in like the background's blacked out, but there's like kind of like a natural set piece. Like one like bad cowboy is like leaning up against a post. An outlaw is like leaning over a fence and he shoots a gun. There's like the funny guy. He wears like a stupid bowler hat. You know, they had like the actor's name, the character name, and like a moving portrait. And I thought it was really cool.
Something I noticed when I watched the movie and got to the end, there's no ending credits. Back then, they didn't have ending credits. You didn't credit the folks who worked on the film, anyone else, like directors, key grips, everyone else you'd expect to see written by. It just is a title card that says like the end. And then people leave the theater. So you really hit them with the here's who's in the movie up front. And then once the title card of the end hits, people are out.
I think there was a lot of credits on the front end because it did say Cimarron by Edna Ferber, who is, I believe, the author. It was based off a book that was written.
She wrote a lot of stuff, apparently, that got adapted. I was reading up.
This is pre-code, so this is pre-Hays Code. Something that we've touched upon. That Hays Code started in 1934. Kind of was like a standardized, like, here's what's okay to put in movies. So we're in Wild West territory, literally.
Yeah, guns and blood and...
Because we're in Oklahoma. But our hero, Yancey, is from
our
Wichita,
main character,
Kansas.
Our main focus. Hero's a tough word for Yance.
He's number one on the call sheet. We'll leave it at that. So this movie takes place during the Oklahoma land rush. And this is actually a crazy point in history of our country. This is basically when the president, Harrison, or whatever the hell he was, he approves folks, U.S. citizens can go stake claims and grab land that was previously occupied and utilized by Native Americans. So crazy times. This opening shot is actually pretty impressive for 1931 because there's a lot of extras. There's a lot of costumes, and this is a period piece, even for back then. There's carriages, there's horses. I was trying to tell if there was like a painted background at some point, but it did seem like there was a lot of production in this opening shot. So pretty impressive, actually. There's also a guy on a big wheel bicycle. Did you see him?
I did. I was paying a lot of attention during this opening scene.
This land rush is like, hey, at a certain hour, everybody can go rush off and stick a flag in the ground, and you can stake your claim in a property that you want. And everyone's on horses and carriages, and there's a guy on this like giant big wheel. I was like, what the hell is this guy doing out here?
It is a wild concept to just like lay claim to a property because there's no property lines. So you just kind of like, I have this general area, and like living here in Tennessee, obviously a land settled way before stuff like that. Like I have a property line and it doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, what created this property line? Like what? There must have been
some
like
guy running out to stake a flag in it. And he
pretty
drew a
much, yeah.
fucked up
So it's
line.
like, and there's like an old like busted down tree stump in my corner of my property, and that's the property line. So it's like, I guess it's just like this tree to that tree. That's my property. You're like, all right,
Man, see?
Guess that's legal claim.
Simple as that.
Yeah, this opening scene to me, I thought there was going to be more of this kind of big production value, but watching this 1931, my first instinct while watching this was what made this a best picture, right? Like, why would the Academy say this was the best picture? So this opening scene, I go, okay, so this is technically, like from a technical aspect, difficult to pull off, the amount of people and horses and carriages and everything. So I'm like, okay, was this the reason? Because it was very impressive. Obviously, there was not a lot of rules around like how you could treat animals, because horses are kind of getting all like tangled up and ruined, and like they're throwing people off, and then like the guy gets thrown off his horse, but he just like keeps running.
Pre-code.
You're like, why are you running alongside a horse? You're gonna have to run like 20 miles, dude. Like you could tell it was just a mess, and they only had time for one shot.
Yeah.
People were just scrambling. The extras were just scrambling. It was actually kind of funny, but technically impressive for the time.
Yeah, so it's kind of like this. Here's a gun, or what? I don't know if it's a gun, but it's just like it's the start of a rat race, and we meet our main character, Yancey Kravitz, and this is Dick Dix, and he is like a very distinguished guy. He dresses nicely, and he's very adventurous and a go-getter, and he wants to like explore this new land that is now up for grabs.
Almost a dreamer / swindler in a way. You could almost tell off the bat, like he's the kind of guy who like he's a friend you wouldn't see for 3 years, and the next time you saw him, he'd tell you about this amazing investment opportunity you have to get in on. And you're like, Yance, there's no easy way out, man. You just got to work. And he's just like, no, there's new stuff on the horizon. We got to, you're like, yeah.
If he was like,
we all know guys like that.
If he was a modern day guy, he would be doing like 50 different startups. And like, he's all about that exciting starting point.
Yeah.
Like, this is the opportunity and this is the potential. And then it like fizzles out. And he's like, time to start something new.
Maybe a few pyramid schemes here or there. Yeah.
He's taken this land rush prompt from the government to go stake a claim. I think it's off Bear Creek or something like that. And we do meet Dixie Lee, who is played by Estelle Taylor. She seems like a cool person. She's like badass, and she's like, hey, I'm actually going out to that same exact spot that you want to go to. And Yancey's like, okay, well, maybe I'll see you out there. Race starts. Yancey goes to his spot. Well, we don't know what it is, but he's almost to a spot. He kind of goes around this like ditch, and Dixie Lee, unfortunately, rides her horse right off the little edge there and lands into the ditch, and claims that her horse's legs are broken. And Yancey, being Captain Save-A-Dixie, comes over. He's like, oh, let me, a macho man, show off how I can help out this damsel in distress. She says, hey, like my horse is dying. I need you to shoot it. Yancey shoots the horse off screen. So they didn't actually shoot horses back then. So that is good for me.
He's pretty casual about it. Kind of quick draws it, kind of like whoosh, and then like holsters it back.
Nothing to him. Meanwhile, Dixie Lee, this actually did get a mouth drop from me. I was like, oh shit. Like she just GTA'd his horse and took off. And it was so funny because she rides off for 200 feet. And then gets off the horse and then just like puts a flag in the ground and stares Yancey down. Like, I got you, bitch. I was like, well, that was rude. Because he just helped you out.
Looking back,
there was no
rules back then. Yeah. I mean, if you could swindle him out of his land. Looking back, what I know about Yancey now, like, I mean, you could have just killed somebody out there. You could have just killed her and buried her and no one would have known.
Yancey's like, dude, I could just like murder you right now on my future land and no one would know the difference. And then on the flip side, Dixie Lee like does a total scumbag move and steals his horse and then rides off 200 feet and puts a flag in the ground and says, this is my land. So it's like a very dishonorable thing by Dixie Lee, but Yancey's like, oh no, I've been had. Oh, well, I'm going to ride all the way back to Kansas.
Also, is that the only land you could grab? He doesn't claim any land.
I know, there's no one else around.
You could claim the next land, or like a land like a mile that way.
You could have said like, hey, Dixie, like we could have been neighbors. Like we don't have to be like 100 miles away from each other.
I would have just claimed as much land as possible and been like a land baron. Like, fuck, you're out there, dude. Like, claim all the land. So that was weird.
And yeah, what is
a weird plot device?
What is the system of claiming land? She puts a flag in the ground, and like you said, is it from this tree to that tree? Is everyone allotted like 300-foot radius from your flag? Like, where are the rules, President Harrison?
The goal of that was just to like populate the area. So I don't think they cared. Like, they were just going to let everybody else figure it out.
Wild West times, man. Wild West times.
Very odd.
He goes back to his house in Wichita, Kansas. It seems like it's a nice, probably plantation place here. It's like a big, elaborate dining room, and like the whole family's there. Everyone's chiming in.
It's his in-laws' place. Yeah.
Everyone's chiming in from the peanut gallery, their 2 cents of what they think should happen. I don't know what this character's name is. Is it Sabra's mom? Like, she's like a big shit talker. And that's where Sabra probably got her like racism from.
Who knows where the people in the 1930s got their racism from? It just was there.
Dude. So bad. So 11 minutes in, we get our first shot of the house slave, who is Isaiah. He's a cute little black kid, and he's played by, I think it was Eugene Jackson.
I don't think slave. I think slave's the wrong word, because this is post-slavery, post-abolition, but it's like the house help, not.
But is he paid?
Thought of as I think his mom was, right, because his mom was the one who was kind of like the housekeeper taking care of the house. She was the one who's like, well, let's get you in the bath. You messing around. Because, I mean, he was hanging up on a chandelier, fell off the table. Like, if he was a slave and he was up on the chandelier, bad things happen. But
I think they called them house slaves. Like, I mean, not back then, but like now in retrospect, they're like, yeah, they were. Just
right. It was like, yeah, that's the best work you can get. So yeah, it was like a live-in servant kind of thing. Obviously, it's not great. I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying like, not
Nick is okay
slave,
with this, everybody.
But not slave, but still like clearly doesn't have the same social rights as everyone else at the table.
11 minutes in, we get this very stereotypical character of Isaiah. He is a black caricature of black people back then. And it's a super tough look. This is based in the late 1800s, but this is shot in 1930. This is like, we're like Jim Crow era. We're like way before civil rights. It's like, I guess cool that you got a job, but like, man, they were just pigeonholed into this one role that you could play, which was just like the comedic relief. Like, your life is not going to be taken seriously. You're just like there for background and like for a laugh. It was tough. It was tough to watch. This movie does not age well with the representation.
Yeah, it was very tough to watch. I mean, our character of Yancey, like, they were never mean to him, which was like, it doesn't like mean like that's good. Like,
it was passive. It was very
passive. But it was still like, yeah, his role in the film was to just kind of be that
belittled.
Oh, hey, and saying stuff like, "Hey, Missa,"
it's like, "Oh, Yancey, please take me to Oklahoma, please." It's like,
yeah, it was still very stereotypical. Still, just like, yikes, very plantation-y, which is not where you want to be.
Hell, plantation-y.
Yeah,
but Miss Thang, who I think is Sabra's mom, in the first 11 minutes, she's like talking about Native Americans being savages. She calls Isaiah a boon boy. I don't know how racist this is, but it is a derogatory term for black folk.
It's no. It's a boon boy. It's a baboon boy. It's extremely like that's no.
Okay, so right off the rip,
that's not low key racism. That's high key racism.
So Miss Thang is popping off of, and she's not winning over any audience members in today's times. Maybe in 1931, they were being swooned by this trash talking lady. But she's like, keep fanning, boy, because he's up on the chandelier, like with a big feather, like fanning the family. I'm like, oh my God. And I kind of got caught in between, like, because again, this is a period piece. So it's like, oh, they were kind of like house indentured hired help. But were they exhibiting the prehistoric thought process of segregation, or was it still being like practice based on the timeline it was being shot in? Because there were like overt, like Sabra's like, I hate those savages. And it seemed like this movie was trying to create the narrative of we need to hold Native Americans in high regard. But back then they treated them poorly. So we're going to write them as pieces of shit. So I kind of got lost on like what was actually racist and what was planned to be like, this is a 30-year-old way of thinking.
It's interesting. It's probably 60-40 of we're portraying it, but also 40% of like, this is still super acceptable for audiences
we're still
to
racist.
see.
Yeah, we're still racist right now.
It's 1931, like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Yancey is like, yo, I'm going out to Oklahoma. I hate this nice house that I'm in. I want to go live on a patch of dirt and start from scratch. I'm trying to go from the ground up. I'm about that grind set. I'm an ideas man. I'm going to the town of Osage. And Sabra is like, I want to come with you. And Isaiah's like, please take me with you. And the mom's not about it, but Sabra, I do like, she stands up for herself. She's like, hey, I'm going to go out and follow my husband, bitch.
Yeah.
Like, stop limiting me, man. And Isaiah, he does sneak aboard the carriage, the stagecoach, the wagon. I don't know. He's down to help with this cause of this big move. Yancey, this is where we kind of start that like very virtuous, like the first character trait of Yancey, where I think the movie wanted to paint the picture that he was a good guy, but he was making very like selfish and self-righteous claims. Isaiah's like, I'll help you out. And then Yancey's like, oh, I'll do you a favor and allow you to be on this journey. And then Isaiah walks away, and then Yancey's like, he looks at Sabra, he's like, there's loyalty money can't buy. And I'm like, yeah, because you're probably not paying him.
Yeah, it's you're taking advantage of a young boy who doesn't have
the position he's in. He has no choice.
Yeah, it's like, wow, you're just taking advantage of like a young boy who doesn't have the same rights as you, who just is like looking for something better. And you're like, he's loyal. It's like, nah, dude, he just has
very limited options.
And you're one of them. So, yikes.
So they roll into Osage, which in 6 weeks is already popping off. It's got 10,000 people and already is like its own little Western town, like a single street with saloons, and a lot of businesses are like combinations. There's like, it's like if you walk down the street today and there was like a McDonald's, but it was also like a morgue, but it was also like a private detective's office, like all in one building. Like they're really comboing all the businesses because it's a startup town. It's a boom town. And then they're rolling through this single street. And again, we get hit with probably the most overtly racist part of this movie that was jaw-dropping to me.
This is bad.
Rock a watermelon there, Isaiah. Yes, sir. I'm still glad I came looking homely.
I think this wasn't like a, hey, let's portray 1989. I think this was a 1931's like
get a laugh
comic relief.
I think it was
line.
a get a laugh
Just
moment,
like,
which was
that's exactly what I think it was.
As they're rolling through this town, there are guys arguing at this like lawyer tent about one's being accused of a Sooner. And this is actually where I learned what this means. I'm sure you know what this means already. Being a college football fan, Oklahoma Sooners.
Boomer Sooner.
I didn't know it originated from this land rush because apparently people would go out before the time, like before the clock race started, hide out. And then once the official legal time started, they would start staking claims in the land. So if you were going to Oklahoma University, isn't a Sooner a bad thing? Kind of like a dirtbag?
Nobody at Oklahoma knows. Nobody at Oklahoma knows.
It seems like it's a negative thing.
Boomer Sooner, dude.
Oh man.
Let's go. So Yancey comes in and on the way there, Yancey they almost got robbed by this guy named the Kid. And he rolls up to Yancey and his wife and Isaiah and their son, who's, I think his name is they call him Cimarron.
His name is Cimarron, and they call him Sim.
And Cimarron is, again, the Spanish term is like wild and unruly and like can't be
Untamed.
tamed. Yep. And so that's their son. So they roll up on them, and then the Kid knows Yancey. Yancey at some point they come up they're like, did you know he killed a guy? Like, I don't know Yancey's background. Apparently he's murdered.
No,
which
he
again
is shady.
Surprises me why he didn't murder Dixie Lee for that land, and then the movie's over.
because as this movie progresses, we have the suspicion that he secretly loves this lady.
There's a lot of evidence for it.
He's simping. He be simping for
he's a big
Dixie
simping.
Lee.
So everybody knows him. Everyone in Oklahoma knows him. He's just a newspaper guy from Wichita, but everyone he comes across goes like, "That's Yancey?"
He's like the Snake Plissken of 1889, dude. Everybody knows who he is. Notorious.
It's Yancey Kravitz. Of course everybody knows this guy. You're like, all right. So yeah, he's like the most popular guy in
Notorious YNC.
The YNC.
There's this guy named Lon Giannis, and he hates Yancey. Like, he's like, look at this yellow belly, city slicker ass motherfucker. Like, I hate this guy. Lon is just a problem. Let's put that out there.
Dude, he starts shooting at
he takes a pot shot at Yancey.
Yeah, at Yancey, but also who's the other guy? I forget his name. Jesse Ricky Roscoe.
Oh, yeah, the stuttering guy?
Yeah, stuttering guy. So this is what I was talking about with the Jewish guy. He's the Jewish guy who's like very meek and stutters.
Soul's the Jewish guy.
Oh, Soul. Sorry, yeah, who works for the newspaper. Yeah. No, this is also a very meager guy. He starts shooting at Soul. Like, he's like, "You want a drink?" And Soul's like, "I don't drink." And he like lassos him and like pulls him towards him, starts like forcing alcohol down his throat.
Take a drink, damn it.
He's like, "When Lon tells you to drink, you drank." And you're just like, what the fuck, Lon?
Lon's a problem, dude. He is
big time problem.
And he has a gang of misfits that they just want to cause problems. But there's a part where he takes a pot shot at Yancey.
Yeah.
And then Sopra's like, "Yo, what the fuck? Like, hell no." And then goes up to this fool and says, like, "What the hell? Are you kidding me? You could have killed us." And then Yancey is like, "Calm down, you goddamn woman. Don't you know it's rude to intervene with a friendly shootout?" I'm like, dude, if someone takes a shot at me, I'm throwing hands.
Yeah.
Like, Sopra's reaction was correct.
There's a lot of like shooting at the ground and shooting around people. It's very bold for guns that are like not properly rifled
Not
and
precise.
very accurate.
Yeah.
Those old 6-shooters are not super accurate.
They're like, "Oh, if he really meant to hit me, he'd hit me." I was like, I think it's like kind of like a thing of chance back in the day, but okay, Yancey.
Not great barrel rifling, that's for sure.
Don't interrupt our male on male shootout.
Oh, sometimes the boys just got to go shooting. And you're just like, Yance. No.
Yance.
You're a father.
Yeah, he's a horrible family man. We'll get into that, but he's a newspaper guy, and he comes in, and there's like this super bizarre. This kind of starts like the weird tangents, like the side missions of Yance.
Mm-hmm.
He's approached by the town, and they're like, "You seem like a smart guy. Can you be the minister for our church?" Because there's this whole church scene, and Yancey's like, "Well, I do fancy myself as a man of God." There's a lot of like ties to Christianity, and I didn't know if that was like a standard back then, or like they just like, you had to do it.
I think the standard, like everybody was like, quote unquote, a man. Like, if you're a good man, you're a man of God in the church. Like, atheism was not a thing in the late 19th century.
He's a newspaper guy. He gets approached to be the minister, and then he walks out of his building, and it says Yancey Kravitz, attorney at law. I was like, how many professions do you have?
He's the most interesting man. I wrote this down. Yancey Kravitz is the most interesting man in the world. He's like a lawyer. He becomes a preacher. He does every job. He's a newspaper mogul.
He's an army guy.
Yeah, you're just like, anything you want, Yancey's got it.
He's your man. So they're like, "Hey, we're going to have a church service. Can you be the minister?" And then we get this shot. This is another like exploitation of Eugene Jackson and playing like a stereotypical black caricature.
It's Isaiah, yeah.
He's strutting down the street in like a suit, and everyone's laughing at him like, "Oh, look, a black guy's dressed nice. That's so funny." And then Yancey's laughing too, but he's pretending to like be on his side. Sabra was like, "Don't laugh at him. He looks nice." And Yancey's like, "Aha, look at him go." Isaiah's like, "I want to go to church and listen to you speak." And Yancey's like, "Oh, that's so cute, Isaiah, but I got a very important job for you." And he's like, "I need you to defend my house with a gun." And Isaiah's like, "Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that'd be such an honor." It's like, this guy sucks, dude.
It was weird because like
Yancey sucks.
At a certain point, like my first thought was like, this is progress because you're giving a black guy like your weapon, right? You're taking the weapon off of your hip and trusting him with it and saying like, "Hey,
that's one way to look at
you
it.
with."
But the main takeaway is like,
But then the takeaway comes where you actually see what's happening.
It's very selfish.
And he didn't want him in church. And you're just like, oh, you're a piece of...
Oh,
like, this
yeah,
was just
I
like
didn't think about that. Like a hidden agenda. Like,
Yancey always had a hidden agenda, dude.
instead, you can defend my home.
My first reaction was like, oh, wow, he trusts Isaiah. Like, he was always nice to him, right? Obviously, the offhanded racist comments, or not offhanded, the very obvious racist comments.
Watermelons.
But was always nice to him. Like, once he saw he stowed away, he's like, yeah, come here, chap. Like, yeah, you're fine. He was like nice enough to him, but
I think Yancey's like intentions are good at a 5% capacity, but the impact.
But they're 1930s intentions, so they're bad.
the modern POV is
Yes.
the impact is so bad.
Yes, I totally agree.
And this is the thing that fucking pisses me off about Yancey, because I feel like his ego is so big. Like, he's not a minister. He's just like I am the main character in my own movie, in my own head. I can go out and do whatever I want at the professional level while being a total novice.
Yeah.
There's a hilarious part in the church. He's like, we're going to do a collection, meaning like we're going to pass the thing around. Everyone donates money. And there's this guy named Pete in the audience, and Pete stands up. He's like, what for? And then Yancey like gives him a dirty look, and he's like, because Pete, that's what churches do. We're going to use the money to buy a church organ. And Pete's like, oh, this isn't a church. We're in the casino.
It's a tent. Yeah.
There's the tent that acts as a casino. Pete's like, this isn't a church. And Yancey's like, well, once we buy an organ, then we'll have to build a church around it, won't we, Pete? And Pete's like, what? Yancey says, anyone who donates less than 2 bits will be thrown out by me personally. So, and I'm like, I thought this was a voluntary donation.
No, not anymore.
He's requiring payment. So he's strong arming this hick town as being a first time minister, and Pete's asking valid questions.
Yeah,
like if we were there, and if some fucking new guy just like from Wichita was like, "All right, I've never done this before, but everybody take out your wallets," I'd be like, "Oh, hold up, what? Why?"
I wrote down Yancey is running a Joel Osteen church.
Yes, he's Joel Osteen.
This is exactly what he's doing. He's like, you want to be godly, right? You got to give me money. You're like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, Yance.
So he's like, anyone who gives up no more than 2 bits will be thrown out by me. And then he's like, except for the Indians. And then there's like a cutaway of all the Native Americans in the church.
All the
It seemed like it was like a Family Guy cutaway. It was like, except for that guy.
Yeah.
And it's like a funny cutaway. It's like, what is this movie?
Native Americans.
So the church, which looks like it has like about 150 people in, they scrounge up $133. So how much is a bit? Is that $1? Because if it is, no one held up this 2-bit bargain.
Yeah, I don't know what 2 bits is personally, but yeah, this is where I wrote this down, and I'll address it now. Where I'm like, Yancey is woke, because like somebody's like, what about the Native Americans? And he's like, you expect?
Oh
no,
yes, because
sorry, yes, keep going.
Sorry to cut you off,
Yeah.
but the total is it's $133.55, and this 55 cents pisses off Yancey. He's like,
so
had
mad.
the audacity to put 55 cents in here, son of a bitch, and it's one of Lon Giannis's guys. He's like, I bet it was one of the Cherokees. And then Yancey is like, a Cherokee is too smart. And I'm like, you mean bitter to donate to the race that robbed them of their birthright?
Yeah, he's like, they're too smart to even give money to people who kick them off of the land that is their birthright. And you're like,
that's what you're actively doing, like in front of their face.
Yeah, I was like, so clearly you have a conscience about this, but like they're all sitting there like scowling at you like, I hate this. I hate that I'm in this casino tent.
Look at how badly we're treating them right now.
I feel terrible for them. You think they'd skip me? Now you give me money so we can continue to expand. You're like, wait, what, Yancey?
This town literally started 6 weeks ago. Who is already making organs in town for them to buy? Like they would need to probably get it from Wichita and pay for shipping. Who's making organs?
No one's making organs.
Yancey is like, he's the minister, he's a jack of all trades, he's a newspaper guy, because there's a newspaper guy that was murdered before. Pegler, I think is the name.
Yeah, and Lon, I think, killed him, right?
Oh, it's super obvious that's Lon. Are you kidding me?
This is like the Wraith obvious, where it's like, who killed my brother? It's like, clearly that guy.
Yancey's like he's ready. He's about to do the name drop of Painkiller's killer, and Lon is like he like whips out the gun and takes a shot at old Yance with those super precise revolvers. Yancey shoots back and murders this guy in church. On his first day on the job as a minister, he forced everybody to pay him money, or the church money, and killed a guy.
Yeah, and then as everybody tries to scramble and leaves, he pulls a Yosemite Sam and just starts firing his pistols in the air.
Nobody moves.
It's like, nobody move. You're like, holy shit, yes.
He's crazy.
It's a stick up.
He yells at everybody to stay where they are. And then he murders Lon, and he looks at the coroner and he's like, yo, get to work and bring his dead ass body out of my church. And then the coroner, like, very matter of fact says, okay, Yance, it's self-defense and justifiable homicide. Come on, boys. And then like 8 of his guys like shuffle off and like grab Lon's body. I'm like, what kind of hellhole? This is Cimarron. This is crazy.
Yeah, this is Cimarron.
This is insane, dog.
Yeah. I see you have a note here about what Yancey does with his pistol next.
So he files a line in his pistol on like I guess, I don't know, the handle, just like the wood accent, or I don't know, maybe ivory, but he files like a notch into it, and I was like, okay, I guess this is confirmed kills. And then this fucking movie does this like a couple times. They do something, it's like, oh, okay, I understand what's happening, and then they like really dumb it down for you. Then he starts like physically counting it with the file, so we can all know it's like 1, 2. So I think he's killed 7 people at this point.
Yeah, Yancey's killed, which is why I'm surprised he didn't kill Dixie Lee for taking his land. I'm like, this guy clearly
loves her.
Yeah, because he's simping. Yancey's next move is, again, he was a newspaper guy in Wichita. He had the Wichita Wigwam, was his newspaper. He loves the Native Americans, but he doesn't show it. Calling it the Wigwam is like an ode to the Native Americans. Like, he feels like this.
He's like
he has a white knight syndrome.
And he does like a lot of cultural appropriation, because he does like a Cherokee war cry at Lon at one point. So it's like he's like a guy who like really, it's like modern day. It's like someone who like really wanted to be black.
Yeah.
And like says like, oh man, the white man keeping us down. It's like, dude, you have the privilege and you don't have the experience. Like,
you can't do this. You can't do this, Yancey.
You're awful.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to start the Oklahoma Wigwam here in Osage.
Not the same ring.
And so he's going to go ahead and do his newspaper and turn this town into a respectable town by having this newspaper going. And in his newspaper, he talks a lot about the plight of the Native Americans. Doesn't do anything practically about it, but he prints it. So, it's good enough for all Yance.
It's kind of like people on social media when they post something about like, this is wrong, but they don't do anything about it.
It's like the people, this is a funny one, because I've seen this in person, like, transpire. I've been out with friends who are like, waiters and waitresses, they get paid so little. Like, we need to do more for them. Like, waiters like get paid. Like we need to have more protections for them. Like, the food industry is so important, yada, yada. Then the next time I'm out to them with a restaurant, they treat the waiter like shit. And you're just like, my guy. Like, I never treat anybody who handles my food poorly. Like, I'm out to dinner. If I have to wait an extra 5 minutes for my drinks to arrive, then it is what it is. I don't care. Like, when somebody's like, yeah, these waiters and waitresses, they really need to like have more protection. And then somebody's like, excuse me, where the fuck are my drinks? You're like, okay, so you just talk about this out in the open, and you don't actually like practice what you preach. And that's Yance.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yance does not practice what he preaches throughout this movie.
Not in any way, shape, or form.
Huge hypocrite.
A really good message and a really terrible messenger, right? You're like, oh, wow, the message you're saying is great. And then you look at their personal life and you're like, oh, wait a minute. You're a bad person.
If you don't uphold what you're preaching, why would I?
Yeah, it's a great point.
All right, we're going to time jump to 1890. 1 year later, Yance and Sabra, they have a daughter named Donna, who's a newborn. And then there's this gang of outlaws. They roll into the town of Osage, led by the kid. This is the character that we met earlier on Yancey and Sabra and Isaiah and Sim's journey into the Osage town. The kid, recognized Yancey back in the day. 1 year ago.
I robbed some banks. I'm on the run. And Yancey's like, cool. And his wife's like, what the fuck? Like, what are we
Yeah, so the
doing
kid
here?
rolls into town. Again, this is the Snake Plissken phenomenon. Like, one of his gang members is like, is that Yancey Cravat? The kid's like, damn, I didn't figure Yancey would be here. But then in like that scene, Yancey literally said, stay out of Osage. I'm going there.
Yeah.
Don't stir up trouble. Do not go there. And then a year later, he's like, I didn't think he was going to be here still.
He told you where he was going to be.
Unless he was in cahoots with Lon Giannis. That's a thought I had.
Or the kid seems very stupid. Maybe he just forgot. I don't know. Maybe he thought Yancey would have moved on by now.
They start fucking up this town. And then this is where Yancey is like, time for me to be the fucking superhero, jack of all trades, man. I'm the sheriff. I'm the minister. I'm the newspaper guy. I'm everything. This town's nothing without me. So he gets in a 1v8 shootout against the kid and his gang.
He also wears a few bullets. Like it's not a big deal.
It's like right in the bicep. It's like, ouch.
I love how the blood doesn't like drip and like keep coming out. It's just like this splotch that just stays there for minutes.
But Sim and his little Native American friend, Ruby, they're running around this town. And then I think Sabra or somebody is like, oh, Sim's out there. And then Isaiah is like, I'll go save him. And then Isaiah goes out and I was like, here we go. Isaiah, it's going to die. And he gets shot and falls to the ground.
Very elongated death scene. Like the old school, like get hit, like, like reaches up, grabs a barrel, like falls down.
It's like, okay, I got it. Isaiah falls down. The shootout ends. Yancey gets the upper hand on the kid and his gang. Walks right past Isaiah. I see you have this note written down. I wrote this down. Isaiah's like calling out
dying.
to him.
He's still alive. And you just
he's
see
still
like,
alive. And
Yancey's boots walk by him.
He's 5 feet away from him.
I think less than 5. I believe it was, in my personal view, it was like...
I think Iverson, Ty Lue stepped over him.
He did, as his...
Is basically what it looked like. Isaiah got Ty Lued.
Very disrespectful step over.
And then they're like, oh, Isaiah got shot. And Yancey is like, oh my God, I didn't see that. And holds him in his arms. And then I'm like, dude, you're such a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
Time jump to 1893. Beset by the guilt over the killing of the kid, Yancey decides to leave Sabra and his children to chase another land rush of settling in more stolen land.
Yeah, he's like, there's more land. And his wife Sabra's like, we have a life here. We talked about settling a life here. We have a newspaper. You're the town minister and sheriff and lawyer. Like, we have everything settled
Judge,
here.
jury, and executioner.
You have me and your son and your daughter. Like, what are you talking about? And he's just like, I gotta go. He just up and bounces.
This was super weird to me because, and Sabra's made a complete 180 because before when she was rolling in, she's like, this town is lawless. I don't feel safe. I don't like this. 4 years later, she's in her groove. She has a whole women's book club or something.
Power. Power.
She got power. She got comfort. I did notice that the amount of years that passed. At an earlier scene, I was thinking, like, why did Yancey leave Wichita? And then he explains to the audience that 5 years was the longest he's ever been somewhere, which is how long he was in Wichita. Apparently, that's his limit. And he's a mover. He's a shaker. He doesn't like to settle down, which doesn't seem like a reliable family man trait. But he seems bored and stuck in a rut, and all the men in the town are like, they just released this new Cherokee land. We're going to go get it. You coming, Yancey? And Yancey's like, no, I got to stay here. He's like real pouty about it. But the mines are calling the children. The land rush it calls to Yancey. And then like on a moment's notice, this fool is like, see ya, honey, I'm going to the Cherokee land. I'm going to start a new empire. And Sabra's like, what? Like, no. Like, can we talk about this? No.
We have children.
He jumped on a horse. They're hooting and hollering. And they're like, pow, 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 pow. Yeehaw, yeehaw. It's like, what the hell? When he stated that he didn't like to be in one place for too long, I noticed, it's been 4 years. So he's probably getting an itch. And then frickin' Sabra explains the math to the audience. She's like, oh, mama said you go for the adventure of it. 5 years. We've only been here for 4. I get it. Like, you didn't need to tell me that.
My mama always said you could never stand being in one place more than 5 years, but we've been here for 4.
We were in Wichita for 5. And we have been in this town for 4. So I guess you have now hit your limit.
Yeah.
Yancey's like we were saying, startup guy, complete narcissist. He left Wichita to start an empire. Now he's bored, wants to leave again for the thrill of it, to start a new empire. This fool's never satisfied. He yearns for the land rush, aka the mines.
Time jump, 1898. So now 5 years later, Sabra has completely taken over the publication of the Wigwam, but can't let go of Yancey. There's even a moment where who's her helper? Yancey's old friend.
There's
At
Soul
the newspaper.
and
The old Jewish
it's
guy. Soul.
And then there's Jesse Rickey, who's the stuttery guy.
So there's the Wigwam, the Oklahoma Wigwam, and the top of it still says like sole proprietor and editor Yancey Kravitz. And he was like, you just can't let him go. You still have him as the editor and the proprietor, even though like Sabra's like taken over this and she's been owning this shit for the last 5 years. She has this family running, this newspaper running. She's a boss bitch.
She is a boss bitch. And this is why this movie is like pissing me off, because like at every single point, even when Yancey is nowhere to be seen, he has to be the hero.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, guess who rolls into town?
So 5 years, no word from Yance. The last thing he said to Sabra before he just hoot and hollered off with the boys, he said, "I'll send for you." He did not. He did not send for her.
Do we need to normalize hooting and hollering off with the boys?
I think I would love to, actually.
Reject humanity, embrace hooting and hollering with the boys, and land grabbing.
This is like kind of like a lame or like a very disjointed Forrest Gump movie at this point, because now apparently he was off at war.
Yeah, the Spanish-American War is happening.
And apparently he was off fighting in the war. It's like, did he get drafted in this like startup town? Or did he just like decide on a whim, like, I need to fight for my country because I'm a narcissist and everything I do has to be heroic?
I think that might have been it, but the Spanish-American War only lasted like 7 or 8 months in 1989. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it lasted from like April to December of like 98.
Sabra,
if I'm not mistaken.
She should have been like,
very short.
The war was only 8 months. And he's like, hey, what's over there?
I was doing war things. I think if I'm not mistaken, the war was like less than a year long, the Spanish-American War.
Yeah, April 21st to December 10th, 1898.
Yeah, it was a very short war. I know my American history, and I'm telling you, dude, it was not like a major conflict.
So what's he doing for the other 4.5 years?
That's a great question. He just rolls back into town, like goes into the offices of the newspaper where Sabra is, and just like grabs her face and starts like kissing her, like, I missed you. And she's like, oh, you can't just roll back into town like this. And he's just like, nah, give me your face. It just starts like making out with her. And you're like, dude, it was the most uncomfortable shit I've ever seen.
He is like,
it was like weird.
Psychotic.
Dude, he's a fucking sociopath.
Yeah, big problem. But what was even weirder is he's come back, no contact for 5 years.
Yeah.
Comes in the house, forcibly kisses his wife.
Forcibly is an understatement.
Walks into the print shop and looks at Ricky. He's like, what the fuck is this? And it's like a paper they're going to publish. And it says Dixie Lee to be sentenced to jail. And he's like, oh, fuck no, not on my watch. I'm going to go be a Captain Save a Dixie. The lady, remember the lady 7 years ago that robbed me of my land? Who, by the way, it didn't pan out. Like, she didn't even use the land.
Also, not sure if we've mentioned this. She's the town prostitute.
Is that what she is? I don't know.
She's a prostitute.
What's her job?
Prostitute.
Did they say that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what they were like. Society's failed her. She just bangs for money.
She's going to be on trial. And then he looks at Ricky. He's like, when is this happening? And then, of course, it's like at 2 p.m. today. And he's like, time to lawyer up. I'm a lawyer up. I'm going to be a lawyer now. I was a minister. I was a serviceman. I'm a newspaper guy. Apparently, I'm attorney at law off screen. So here we go. Now it's time to be on screen, attorney at law. I'm going to go represent Dixie Lee. And it's like, for what? For what? He's like hardcore crushing on this girl who robbed him of his land. His wife, who he married, despises this woman, and he rushes to her side.
His wife's mission over the last few years has been to put her in jail.
This man does not love his wife.
He's been banging this prostitute, right?
He's banging Dixie Lee.
Ever since she stole his land, I thought my conspiracy theory, it's not even a conspiracy theory, there's pretty good evidence for this. After she stole his land, he just banged her on her newly staked land, and he's been connected to her ever since.
Oh, like traded the quid for pro? Quid pro quo?
Quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo.
Yeah.
So he quitted the shit out of Dixie, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
For that land.
Earlier in the movie, he was like talking to her and like holding her hand, and his wife's like, "Why are you holding her hand?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just being nice."
Yeah,
and it's like,
that's
no, you're
really
banging
suspect.
this chick, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're married. We're both married men. If I went up to a woman who was like, let's not even say
was the town prostitute.
we knew was a prostitute, but was like, scandalous and like very loose. And we went up to them at a bar and say, "Oh, I've met them before." It was like holding their hand and touching their back. Your wife would rightfully be like, "What are you doing?" And then Yancey just gaslights the shit out of his wife nonstop. After he gets Dixie off, he's like, "What do you want me to do? Like, this woman's a victim. What are you talking about?" And his wife ends up being like, "You're right, Yancey." He's like, "Damn right I'm right." And you're like, you're a gaslighting sack of shit, dude. What are you talking about?
Sociopath.
It's exactly what it is.
And I don't know what the crime is. Is it just because she was the town prostitute? I don't know what she's on trial for.
Public nuisance, yeah, being the prostitute, like
yeah, they were basically
trouble.
like you're like everybody in town hates you, so you're just on trial. That's what was told to me.
Back then, that was enough to like run a trial on.
That was a step in the right direction from like burning people at the stake for accusing them of being a witch. At least you got a trial.
Well, like in today's world, if you were a homeless person in like a small town, like on the corner, just like yelling at people, the cops would eventually be like, "Yo, dude, you can't. You're a public nuisance. We can't. We gotta come on."
Apparently, that's Dixie Lee.
She was on a corner saying like, "I'm gonna sex you," but only she really had eyes for Yancey, and Yancey had eyes for her.
Dirtbag. The 1898 time period ends with an announcement that Teddy Roosevelt makes Oklahoma a state. And we wrap up this section of the movie with a freeze frame portrait of Teddy Roosevelt and fades to black, followed by a 1907 title card and in all caps, oil. We're in the oil era. So Osage has continued to grow. And so this is territory of Oklahoma. It's benefiting from the oil boom. Also prospering along the settlers are the Native American tribes, which Yancey supports through his editorials in his newspaper.
Something I want to bring up that I thought was interesting, because I think this was a sign of the times of 1931, where they were trying to be a lot more sympathetic towards the Native Americans. At one point, Yancey does say, "These hardworking Americans," not like Native Americans, not Indians, but like Americans. I do know back in like the early 1900s, there was a huge push to be like, "Hey, these aren't separate people. These are Americans." Obviously, the Native Americans didn't want to be like traditional Americans, but like there was a huge push in like the American government to like,
they were trying to assimilate them.
Yeah, very, very much, right? To like call them Americans, like, "Hey, these are Americans. We're all going to live happy in like an American society." Obviously, that was not the goal of the tribal folk, but that was brought up. So I thought that was interesting to hear. Like that definitely like caught my ear very like sharply. I don't necessarily want to call it an agenda, but
it's really bizarre because there's a huge double standard here with the Native Americans and the African Americans. Because
really,
because this movie was like trying to portray Native Americans like as like victims, and we need to be respectful to them. And then on the flip side, it's like, why aren't we treating black people like this? Why is Isaiah running around like a caricature? Why is he like an unpaid low income servant for the house? Like what are we? What?
I have my own thoughts on that, but yeah.
And I think it's because America knew they were in the wrong because they stole this land and they were trying to win over the Native Americans, whereas like they just like stole people from Africa and made them slaves, and then they're just transplants from ancestors who were brought over.
If I got on my soapbox, I'd say like, yeah, careful. If I was on my soapbox, I would say like it's very common for definitely more of like the high class American to pander to like the topic of the day. And I think back then the topic of the day was Native Americans and not African Americans. So you pander to one group and you don't care about the other group. And then like when it's convenient, you pander to one group and forget about the other group. And I think that's something that Americans have done since then up to today.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like you just kind of grab the group that you think has been like
It's
the
happening
most
right now.
victimized. It happens right now, right? Yeah. It happens.
We're like, oh my God,
all the
this poor country is suffering. It's like, yeah, but like look at this entire other group of people that is like suffering right now.
I think that all the time. They're like, look, these people are being hit with bombs nonstop. And I'm like, or say like, oh, this country's going through a genocide. And I'm like, there's 50 countries in Africa right now who a warlord is just mowing down citizens. Like, do you care about that? And they're like, oh yeah, that's bad. But this is in the news. So let's focus. So I think it's just a victim of that. Native Americans being a hot topic at this point in time, which is not excusable. But
what you just said, it reminds me like humanity is, unfortunately, like Yance. Like humanity is Yancey.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is so bad. And I'm going to talk this up and make it seem like I am like so virtuous and self-righteous, but I'm going to ignore the problem off to the side. Not my problem.
It's like a focus on the shiny object thing, right? We talked about it last season, but it's like, oh, there's genocide going on here. It's like, there's genocide of Uyghur Muslims going on in China. You want to talk about that? It's like, oh, that's not really convenient for me to discuss right now.
Yeah, it's just not like a hot topic.
Right? And so it's like, okay, well, if you're following the shiny object, I don't really trust your intentions. That doesn't say you don't have a good thing to say at the end of the day, which is like, yeah, Native Americans should have been treated better in the past and today. Like, yeah, it's a super valid point. But when your messenger is Yancey, who's just the guy who's, following the shiny light and also like being very racist to Isaiah, you're like, well, I don't trust anything you're saying. And so it's a tough look.
Yeah, it's actually very sad to look at this movie and be like, oh, wow, they were so bad back then. And then kind of like what you just brought up right now.
But they thought they were making a really good point.
It's like, that's exactly what's still happening right now. That's crazy.
Yeah. This would be like portraying an Abraham Lincoln who you're like, yeah, Abraham Lincoln, he helped free the slaves, but also he like beat his wife and like kicked his children. And you're like,
that's Yancey.
Yeah. So you're like, wow, He's a bad guy who had some good, again, not portraying Abe Lincoln in the best lights. I mean, he had his faults, but it's like, this is a great message, but you really made me hate the messenger. And so that's not a good thing to do for a movie.
No.
Right? It doesn't make me sympathize with the Yants, with the Y man.
Well, we are popping off with the oil. Off. Step off the soapbox. The oil era is going crazy in the United States.
1907.
This part of the country. So Sim has grown up. He's like an 18-year-old. He's like, I want to go marry Ruby, who's the Native American friend. And Sabra is like not okay with her son marrying hired help, quote unquote, Indian girl.
Also, Sim's younger sister, Donna.
Oh,
the daughter who was born during the movie is like, Sim's going to marry that Indian girl. And his mom's like, does your father know about this? And again, we start to feel like good about Yancey because he's like, yeah, dad knows and he fully approves. And you're like, yeah, because Yancey's maybe not a bigot. But everything I've seen at this point, like, he's a bad guy.
It's a dangerous game. It's like the Homelander effect.
Yeah.
It's like Homelander always thinks he's right, but his impact on everybody is like detrimental.
I will say Sim is the only good person in this movie. I think this is Yancey's son.
At best,
who grows up, becomes an engineer.
At best is neutral.
Well, I think he's more than neutral. I don't have a bad thing to say about Sim. He grows up, marries his
no, but that's the thing.
Childhood sweetheart in Ruby.
Yeah, that's like a normal person thing to do, but like he's not like anti-racist. He's not like telling his mom that she's wrong. He's just like, this is what I want to go do, and this is what I'm going to do. So he's very neutral on it.
He's very shameless about it. He's very much like, yeah, I don't care. Like, this is what I'm doing. I don't care what you think.
He's by far and away the best person in this movie.
Yeah.
Morals wise.
Sim is the only guy I respect. The only person I respect in this movie. And I'm glad it's named Cimarron after him because he's the only good person.
Osage is popping off. There's a guy showing off his 2-cylinder 30-mile-an-hour whip he got. He's showing it off to the ladies.
Show him the foldable windshield.
I'm going to get those headlights that can make me see around the corners. And at this point in the movie, we got 20 minutes left. And I'm like, how the hell is this going to end? And then so the other lawyer, is that who that was? The one who was like lawyering against Dixie Lee in the previous time slot?
Yep.
So is that who comes in with like a proposition to like dick over the Native Americans?
Yeah.
I think he's like, we want to do like embezzling and like have someone do bookkeeping for Native Americans and their land that has all this oil. But we're going to like steal money from them. He just like overtly says
it's the husband of that one lady who's like throughout the movie, like the super proper rich lady.
Miss Tracy Wyatt.
Yeah, it's her husband.
Was he also the lawyer?
Probably.
Everybody has like 3 jobs.
Black and white. The movie's black and white, and everybody looks so similar that it's like so hard to keep track.
Sabra and Dixie Lee looked so similar. I think that's why Yancey was like, I can't tell my wife and this whoer apart.
By the end of the movie, it was hard to tell like who's who because I'm not used to black and white.
So Yancey, like he tells Sabra, like, I'm going to publish this in my newspaper that I think he calls them, he says Native Americans, he's like, the red man should have the same rights as the white man. So you're like, okay, like you're trying to tell me like you're a good person, but you're calling people red mans. But again, this goes back to like, was that how they referred to them in 1907, even though this is made in 1930? I don't know.
Dude, go back to...
Was it a depiction of history or was this them just being racist in the moment in filmmaking?
Go to 1953. Go to 22 years later. Disney's animated Peter Pan had the song "What Makes the Red Man Red." Because I looked this up because I was like, Red Man. And it's like, yeah, that was the Red Man. I mean, Red Man chewing tobacco. Red Man chewing tobacco has been around. Yeah. That was like... Asians were considered quote unquote yellow, red, like we assigned colors to races inexplicably. But like that's something that would continue on for the next 20, 30 years. I mean, shit, dude, we're only 4 years removed from an NFL franchise being called the Redskins.
So Yancey goes up to Sabra and says, like, I want to publish this in my newspaper and put Native Americans on the equal playing field. Not black people, though. And then he disappears again. He's gone.
Well, not just that. Like he goes. It's like a very hard stance. Like he talks about like Sabra's like
she hates Native Americans.
Yeah, she's like, if you say this, it'll be like treason of the government. And my first response as someone who doesn't like the government is like, I'll criticize the government all goddamn fucking day. If you're telling me in 1908 or 1907 that like criticizing the government was going to get you arrested, like that's not the time frame for me. But he was like, I don't care, their stories need to be told, yada yada. So once again, he's like the white knight savior.
He's Captain Sava, fill in the blank.
Yeah,
but he's acting like a insane person. She does say this isn't Cimarron country anymore, it's the state of Oklahoma. This is during that conversation of him wanting to publish the criticism of the government.
Funny enough, it's still Cimarron County.
You know, despite wanting to build settlements on stolen land, he also acknowledges that Native Americans are getting screwed. So it's just like, what is your agenda, dude? I don't get it. But he disappears one more time.
For the last time.
Well, for last time. And we are hit with a title card. It says, with the fading glory of the pioneering days, Yancey, again, stirred by wanderlust, had ridden away to newer fields while Sabra carried on her work alone. ... 6 dots.
Tell you, Sabra's a boss bitch handling shit herself.
1929. It's insane that this is basically present day for when this movie came out.
Yeah.
But years later, Sabra becomes the first female member of Congress from the state of Oklahoma. And she is she's actually becoming accepting of her Native American daughter-in-law.
Very proud of her. Introduces her at a
soiree.
Not just like, oh, this is my Indian daughter-in-law. She's like she's like the daughter of a Cherokee chief, like very like these are like
Ruby Big Elk.
This is their offspring. Yeah, Ruby Big Elk. She's very much embraced that, which is like she's had the most growth of anybody.
We don't see that progression.
We haven't seen it, but like point A to point B, you're like,
but the point A was so long. And then the point B just showed up out of nowhere. So
what I'm saying is like Sabra started the movie of like, I'm just going to follow my husband and do whatever he does to be like, I'm going to be a newspaper tycoon. And now I'm not racist towards Indian folk. It's the best growth of the movie, and I'm not saying that.
I think
that's
it's
a
the only
high
character
bar to
progression,
clear.
actually. Yeah. No,
It's
I
not
think
a
it's
high
the only
bar to
one.
clear, but it's there.
She goes to this like random town that like
This fucking ending to this movie.
it's like another startup boom town. There's a crowd coming. They're coming to like crowd this person that like is injured, and we're like, okay, like this is Yancey. Obviously, because we haven't seen him because he disappeared for another like what the fuck is it? 22 years. He's been gone. And again, he has to be the hero because apparently it's like, oh my God, he died saving like a basket of kittens in a tree that was on fire. It's like, stop trying to tell me that Yancey's a good guy. He sucks. He made a sacrifice play. He like sprinted up to a torpedo and bear hugged it and to prevent it from exploding, saving.
Yeah, I don't know what a
hundreds.
torpedo's doing in like an oil mine.
It was like a Chuck Norris tall tale.
Yeah, I don't know why he's hugging torpedoes. I don't know, man. And she's like, "What was his name?" And they're like, "We just call him Old Yance." And she's like,
She rushes to his side after hearing that, and then his last words to his wife is "Hide me in your love." Didn't know what this meant, but Yance dies,
"Not even a sorry, I wasn't there to raise the kids."
and then I left you for 22 years. Yeah, it's just like, what the hell? Then there's a statue of a Oklahoma pioneer that is revealed in, I guess, the town of Osage. And I guess it's supposed to be Yance.
That's what I figured.
I think that's what's implied.
The statue is him like trailblazing with like a young like Native American behind him, as if he's like the savior for Native Americans. It's like, all right,
Naturally.
fantastic.
And then we're hit with the end. And that is plot talk
Good Lord.
for Cimarron,
Cimarron.
1931, directed by Wesley Ruggles. Okay, Nick, do you have any nitpicks? Nitpicks.
I don't. I didn't really figure to put any nitpicks together because like the movie's old. There's not really a plot. It's just like a timeline movie of like this happens, this happens, this happens.
My nitpick is that just the old timey ass like editing of this, like some of the shots linger on too long.
Oh,
It's very apparent when people are having a back and forth. It seems like we're starting the cut where the director says action and the character is listening to what is being said off screen and then reacts and says his line. It's like, no, you're supposed to start it when he says his line. Like it was the Pete and Yancey in the church. Like when they were having their back and forth, it was like they were showing the reaction shots, like time jumping back like 5 seconds of them listening to the other character. And then they would like continue with their line. It was super awkward.
This movie's over 2 hours, like 2 hours and 3 minutes. That's an unacceptable amount of time.
Yeah, I really think you could just nitpick this movie for the technical filmmaking aspects of it, of just like the awkward cuts, the editing, the odd Foley work they have. Like it's weird.
I was ready for a Western epic. After that first scene when like everybody's going, the horses are going, and then that was the only time they did that. And the rest of the movie was very straightforward shots.
They wanted to start off with a really hot impression, and then that was it. Yeah.
All right, James. Talking points. I'll start us off. My question is, again, I brought this up, so I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, I know this one Best Picture. So like the whole time I'm trying to say like what made this movie quote unquote good, right? Like for the time to like have it voted to be Best Picture or, you know, at least Oscar worthy. So like, was it the big scenes? Was it the horses? Was it the guns? Was it the like a quote like a technical impressiveness of the movie? Was it the length? Like what made this movie worthy of like a Best Picture?
I have a very simple answer for you.
Yeah.
So I thought it was going to be like, oh, this is, like you said, the first scene looks very impressive, looks like high production value, and you're thinking it's going to carry on throughout the rest of the movie. But it doesn't quite do that. And honestly, I think it just boils down to this is the best they could do during the Great Depression. This movie was shot in the beginning stages of the Great Depression. And I gotta say, it holds up watching it fine. I honestly thought that this was an easier and more engaging story to follow than Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. So I thought like at least this movie had like an interesting topic and had my attention, not for the right reasons. I kind of wanted to just see where it was going. But honestly, I just really think it's like maybe there wasn't that many movies out because like the country was like economically suffering.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's not good. It's just like it was good because it was the only thing out there.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I also think there's probably a little bit of the same biases and thought processes that the Academy feels today, as far as the like, oh, there's an agenda behind it. I actually think probably in 1931, they were like, wow, this is really progressive for like standing up for Native Americans. And like Yancey was nice to the African American boy, even though he died and was like wildly stereotyped and like not done any sort of justice at all. But it might have been the best portrayal they've had. And again, maybe you could treat women in your family that way back then as a man. Like, so like they overlooked that. But as a movie, even by today's standard, even by 1930s, I bet you I could watch 10 movies from 1931 and be more impressed than what I saw in Cimarron. No, I don't think this movie was good or Oscar worthy. And I don't think there was anything about it that screamed to me like, wow, this really struck the nerve of the Academy.
The other movies that were nominated were East Lynne, The Front Page, Skippy, and Trader Horn. I don't know what these movies are. Maybe they were trash, and this was like the halfway decent one.
I feel like it succumbs to the same pressures as today, where it's like, wow, it really tackled a quote-unquote tough topic. And so we're going to give it a little extra love. And it's like, but it didn't tackle it well. So here we are.
I'm going to roll that into my talking point here. Staying on topic of the timeline and this coming out in the Great Depression, I want to know, what was the goal of this movie? Because I have an answer, or I have a take on it. Mine does have to do with the era that America was in. But do you have like why was this movie made? I mean, it was adapted from a novel, but do you think they had like a goal in mind, or like kind of propaganda? What do you think?
Yeah, I do. So I'm actually going to just fold in one of my talking points, which is like the time period they addressed in the premiere. So as discussed earlier in the plot talk, we're talking about something that was 40 years before the premiere of this. So, I mean, they're tackling something pretty recent, all things considered. I think the goal of this movie, again, was to be a little bit, in today's terms, woke or progressive. For then, I'm sure it probably was.
It was like awaketh.
Yes, awaketh. Nice. In that vein, right? To say, we're going to tackle the Native Americans, the land rush, how it affected Native Americans. Of course, in 1931, you couldn't do that without having Richard Dix still play this
Dick Dix
hero character, but you could still have him speak out against injustices. It was also very female-led, right? Sabra and her crew, like, she becomes a congresswoman. So I think for the time, it was trying to be a really progressive movie. Obviously, by today's standards, that's not even close.
Yeah, it didn't hold up. I agree with you. I think it was trying to be progressive, but like even like the women represented in it were just not dynamic. It's like Dixie Lee was just like a victim.
I'm a whore.
And misunderstood, and that was it. And Sabra was just like, she sucks. She complains a lot. She's racist and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, she's got to be redeemed at the end. She's okay with Native Americans. It seemed like really tacked on the end.
But she never broke away from her husband's grip, though, either.
Like, she's very dependent, and like she can work independently and obviously run this newspaper company, but she's not like, she can't let go of Yancey when she should.
She never took his name off of the newspaper.
Like, she's a pushover. This movie is just like Yancey, like where they're trying to preach and like say like, we're good and we're patting ourselves on the back and we know what we're talking about. And their practice is whacktus. You know what I'm saying? It's out of whack.
The movie is Yancey. It's a great way to put it.
My take on the goal of this movie, I did think it was kind of like a little bit of propaganda because, they were in the Great Depression. So I think they were trying to showcase like, well, look at how crazy it was back in 1889 when like you just rode up and staked a flag in the ground and you got to be a hardworking American to make it in this country. And Yancey's super ambitious and he's starting towns. And this thought really, it came to me at this point in the movie when Sol, our Jewish character, Yancey's gone, obviously, because that's what he does. He leaves his family. And then so Sabra is talking to Soul, and Soul says it's people like Yancey that build this world and guys like me that just come along and live in it.
That pissed me off so bad.
It was like glorifying being a sociopath, a narcissist, an insane person. It's like a very toxic work environment when like your boss is like, you could do the bare minimum 8 to 5 and whatever, but like if you're a really good worker and you care about this company, you'll put in the overtime and like good things will come to you. It's like, no. I felt like this movie was trying to convince Americans like you should literally kill yourself to try and make it big and try and make it work.
To be Yancey.
Because that's what Yancey does.
Yeah.
Because Yancey is like, he's delusional. And
I forgot about that.
He's supposed to be like this. Go ahead.
When Soul said that is actually super upsetting. Where it's like, he was super subservient to Yancey as well, the whole movie.
I'm Soul all day. Like I'm coming in, I'm punching my time card. I'm leaving. Like I'm not going to kill myself to serve the machine here, which is the American conquest of the Native American land.
The interesting thing about Yancey is it wasn't like, oh, the machine, like he was ready to make all the money himself, but he just was like, well, I just have that adventuring spirit. And it was almost like, yeah, have that adventuring spirit at the expense of your family. This is my personal thought process on life. Once you find your family, once you find a wife, have kids, and then that becomes the most important thing in the world to you, and don't care about anything else. And like Yancey had 2 beautiful kids. He had a community that cared about him, and he was just like, no, I need to go on to the next best thing. And it's like, dog, there's no better thing in the world than your family and your community, your legacy in that town. Like that's a fine way to live.
Normalize being a normal person. I couldn't agree more. When I was in my early 20s, I was like, I'm going to be a crazy person and I'm going to stay up late and I'm going to work hard and I'm going to get what I want and be a very successful person and be like one of those like super, like I'm all about work. I'm married to work. And once I met my wife, I was like, I want to go travel the world with you. I want to go eat food with you. I don't care about all that now. Yancey does not love his family.
No, dude, I'm in the same boat. When I met my wife, I was working at a startup. I was working from like 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Like that was it, dude. And I was like, we're going to make this work and I'm going to make money and we're going to go nuts. And I no longer work for that company, obviously. And now that I have a more stable 9 to 5, once 5 o'clock hits, dude, and I'm like, I get to go home and see my wife and hang out. It's like, oh, wait, no, that's the purpose of living.
Yeah.
And it's like this movie just completely missed that. Like
completely opposite. Like what was the message?
It was a bad one.
No, honestly, I think they were trying to say like to get stuff done. I think with that line of like men like him build the world, I think they were trying to glorify that. But like I saw it as the opposite. I was like, Yancey literally killed himself being a victim to building empires and trying to be like a grinder. And they were glorifying the wrong stuff.
Well, it was also, to me, it's like being a slave to like the quick fix, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go take some land and do this and it's going to be great. And that should have been the lesson of Yancey, of like he chased that and then ended up dying as like a 9 to 5er on an oil field. Where it's like you could have had it all. He could have. He had it all laid out in front of him and he died like digging for oil like next to a torpedo or something. I still don't understand that. But it's like that should have been the lesson of like you need to be happy with what you have instead of like chasing this fool's gold constantly. That should have been the lesson. Yeah. That would have been a much better lesson for this movie than like, oh, Yancey died chasing his dream and he's a virtuous person. He's not.
He gets a statue. Great.
You should chase your dreams, sure, but not at the expense of like giving up the happiness that you have in the palm of your hands.
I'll enjoy that statue when I'm dead.
Statues are meant for the dead.
Let's move on to the mini awards here on topic for the Oscars week. Nick, new tradition, new weekly routine. What was the best weapon in this movie?
Ooh, I mean, I think the only weapon...
There's only a couple, but I think it's Yancey's dual revolvers.
Yeah, Yancey 6-shooters, man. That's got to be it. That's all we got.
I mean, there was Lon Giannis Antetokounmpo's gun as well, but he was not sick with it like Yance.
Maybe the torpedo that killed Yancey?
But we didn't see that.
Yeah, it's true. Any standout pieces of shit? Because I have a few. And by a few, I mean literally everybody in this movie.
Except for Sim. Like we said, Sabra, she's just kind of sucks. She's overtly racist, complains all the time. She's just a whiner. But I think far and away, clear and wide, it's Yancey, the main character of this movie.
I think his daughter Donna is close because at a certain point she's like super entitled.
Donna comes out the gate
like,
hot.
Are you gonna go back to college? She's like, I don't want to go back to college because they all make fun of me because my dad's just a member of Oklahoma and that's like Indian country. Did you know my brother's gonna marry an Indian girl? And you're like, whoa, Donna.
And at that moment, she's like, I'm gonna go find the richest white guy in town and marry him. It's like, why do you suck?
That's exactly what she said. She's like, I'm gonna go marry the richest white guy in town. You're like, so Donna was up there for me.
The women in this movie are not represented well.
No.
It's for sure Yancey, though.
But it's got to be Yancey, right?
All the points we covered. Lunatic, demented, hell-bent on manifest destiny. This man is...
He's a con man.
He's Cimarron.
He's a con man.
He's Cimarron. You can't tame Nancy. He's untamable.
No.
Are you kidding me? Fuck.
His son, Cimarron, is the most tameable. Because Ruby, the Native American girl who he grew up with, tamed him and gave him a great life. So sometimes it's good to be tamed. Leading into my MVP of this movie, Cimarron. He's the only good person, I think, in this movie.
only halfway decent.
Yeah.
I think I have to agree. I think MVP is Sim. The only hope for humanity.
He never shows like prejudice towards anyone. Falls in love with the girl, the Indian girl he's known his whole life. He's going to marry her, have kids with her, and he's very unabashedly like, that's what he is. And I'm like, good for you, Sim. Good for you. Don't care what your parents think. He's just like, yeah, I love this girl. I'm going to have kids.
Okay, corny for the worst scene. What do you got?
Like when Yancey comes home for the first time and just like forcibly makes out with his wife. Like, I'm home. Where are my kids? Like, oh my! And he like looks at his daughter, and his daughter looks at him like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "Oh, Donna, your son." He's like, "Your daughter doesn't know you. You've been out for 5 years."
It's very cringeworthy,
dude. It was so weird, and like the kiss he plants on his wife is like kind of rapey because you could tell she's like, "You have a lot of explaining to do," and he's like, "Nah, just kiss me." Like grabs her face. You're like, "Oh." Dude, it's fucking, I hate, like, that scene was tough. I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah.
My corny for worst scene of this movie is, it was going to be the watermelon one, but that was really just like a moment.
Yeah.
But I actually did like the rest of that scene because you're rolling through town. It's like a cool moving shot and you're getting to know the town and like the characters.
Set pieces are really cool.
It's cool. Yeah. It's like, this is cool. But I think the worst scene actually follows the scene that you brought up. I think it's the court case scene because it's just like this guy comes back from war 5 years later and then just runs to the side of this lady that he just like I think is in love with. And again, this is just a man. He's mansplaining. So this white man is just like he has the floor. He's stealing the scene. He's the ventriloquist for this female character. That is just like looking there all sad and is a victim. And he's like, she's a victim of the system. And look at her. How dare you guys? And it's just like, dude, this guy just rolls into town on his fucking high horse, is preaching to everybody about how wrong they are. It's like, I can't with this guy.
Not just that.
And it was just, it had nothing to do with the plot too. That's why it was like the worst scene for me.
His wife was the one who was like trying to get her off the streets, like convict her, like, she's just out here whoring and it's bad for the town. And then he goes into their house and gaslights her into thinking his way. Like, but you got to think. And even she was like, you don't believe that. And he's like, doesn't matter if I believe it. Like, this is what it is. And
he's insane.
He doesn't believe what he's saying. He's just like a good public speaker. He's a sociopath.
He's a politician.
Yes.
He just says stuff to like, seem like he's a good person, but like he doesn't believe in it.
The worst part about this fucking movie is that he could be a politician and they're always like, I could make you governor. And he's like, I'm too principled to be governor. Like he's too good to be a politician, but that's all that he fucking is in this town. Is like the most upsetting shit to me. Where it's like, oh, I can make you governor. He's like, but I'm going to stand up for what I believe. And they're like, you're right. You couldn't be governor because you're too principled. He's like, that's right. It's like, what the fuck? Ugh. How about a best scene, James? You got a best scene in this movie?
I think the clear winner for me was the shootout scene with the kid. And I say this because I think this is where we saw the best cinematography and editing. Because like we said, the opening scene was pretty attention grabbing and impressive with how many extras were on scene and the high POV wide shot of the start of the quote unquote rush. The shootout scene with the kid though is like, I think where I saw the most cuts and it seemed like the most attention grabbing and action packed. Whereas the rest of this movie kind of plays out as like a sitcom shot, like whenever they're in like a setting, it's just like, the camera is at this wall and we're looking at like 3/4 of your body the entire time and you're conversing.
Big time corner shots. Yeah.
And just like very standard, like basic shots. That's why I brought up Santa Claus Conquers the Martians earlier. That movie was just like the camera's here and that's it. Like we're not immersing you in this world. Like fucking watch this stage performance like you're at a school play. So the shootout scene was actually pretty engaging, and it was the most Western-y part of this Western, even though it just seems like a really weird like side quest mission movie. How about you?
I said the opening scene.
Yeah,
it
that's
just
the
kind
only
of
two
dovetails into
like,
what
good
you're
scenes.
saying. Yeah, we talked about this at the beginning, where it's like, yeah, the opening scene was really good, and then the rest of the movie really disappointed, which is not a good sign for your movie when like the best scene is what you open on, and it's a 2-hour movie. And I got to watch 150 minutes of less engaging shit than the opening 10 minutes.
All right, let's wrap this up before we head into our final review here with our sarcastic selling points. I'm going to go first. This is a racist Western Forrest Gump. I had a drawn out one.
That might be a little too kind.
But I did have a drawn out sarcastic selling point. Like,
I love it.
Like, oh, let's do this, but also do this. But then as we were talking about it, I was like, no, this is kind of like a shit version of Forrest Gump that's racist.
It is, because like Forrest Gump is like a this happens, where it's just like
it's like, yeah, like
chronological
our main character
story.
is like going through crazy side missions.
Yeah.
But like this one just sucked.
Yeah, I said a piece of shit guy settles in Oklahoma, but at least he is less racist than everyone else, so I guess that's cool.
Wait, is that your laughable logline or your sarcastic selling point?
My sarcastic selling point. I got a lot better for the laughable logline.
That's okay.
Final review. Fight.
Speaking of that, let's head into our final review. Here's what the other guys are saying about 1931's Cimarron. Rotten Tomatoes critics, half the critics like this movie, 50% flat. Can you shock me with what the audience is thinking?
25.
Half?
That's a 25%.
Half of the half?
Half of the critics.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
We're working in increments of fourths.
All right, well, we're going to get real weird here with Metacritic. The critic score is actually going to be a 70 out of 100, translates to a 7.0 on the popcorn point scale.
The people score on Metacritic doesn't exist.
No one bothered.
They have not watched this movie.
And now for our super racist score from IMDb, a 5.8. Yikes.
I mean,
That's what I say.
We are definitely in sync on the racism, my friend. All right. Well,
we're not, okay. Yeah. Moving on.
I think it's your turn to hit you with the laughable log line and your final thoughts and your popcorn points, my friend.
Oh man. All right. So my laughable log line for Cimarron is: blinded by his arrogance and narcissism, a never satisfied Wichita man attempts to establish multiple empires along the Oklahoma panhandle through his unhealthy infatuation with Manifest Destiny. I'm going to slap this with a 3.1 popcorn points.
Oof.
It translates to a bag o' kernels for me. And the reason it's a 3.1 is because honestly, I'm looking at my sheet and Hulk is a re-rated 3.0 for me.
Ooh.
Hulk is going to be worse than this movie, but The Wraith is going to be better than this movie for me.
Okay.
I really think it had a lot of potential here, because there was a moment in time in this movie when I thought, okay, we're going to get like this dilemma with Yancey and his like never satisfied mentality of like, I have to go out and I have to produce something. I have to make my life meaningful. And I thought we were going to get a lot more struggle with him settling down with his family because he doesn't like to settle down. He can't stay in one place for too long. And it was going to be like this push pull with, I got to go. I have to see this adventure through versus I have to stay and love my family and raise them. But we're slapped with like side quests, like the court case scene that was 15 minutes. He's missing for 5 years. I was off in the war. What is happening in this movie? You could have had something good there, but again, I really just think they were just trying their best for 1930. Everyone was greatly depressed in this time, and this was the best they can do.
Tough.
What do you got?
My laughable log line is a newspaper wannabe tycoon is a terrible husband and father. Also, he's super racist, but doesn't think he is, but we know. This is a 1.3.
Oh,
easy.
Wow.
Easy, man. This is
Oh,
not.
man.
Yeah, this is not good. And maybe you could say, "Oh, Nick, you're judging it by 2024 standards." You bet
Wait,
your ass I am.
No, that's exactly what we're doing. Wait, that's funny. You're 1.3. I'm 3.1. We're kind of mirror image on the same page here. And
A little bit,
this came out in 1931, so it kind of all thematically fits. And it sucks.
but but what is kind of funny is you used your Hulk analysis of 3. I used my Hulk analysis of 1.2 to put this 1 point above the Hulk.
Hulk's the standards, ladies and gentlemen.
Hulk is the standard for a bad movie, but
The Hulk average score from us is 2.1, and this is now 2.2. Beautiful.
yeah, so that works for me. No, it's a 1.3, man. I don't know what these critics were saying. I don't know where this came from. Honestly, it's boring from a storytelling perspective. They want us to care about Yancey. I don't give 2 flying fucks about Yancey. I really don't. It's boring. It's forgettable. The storytelling's bad.
Not the best picture. Might be the worst best picture.
It might be the worst best picture if we end up watching them all. I want to say the storytelling's bad, but I don't even want to call it a story.
It's just things happen.
It's just events that happen. This is like the equivalent of a good message with a bad messenger. So I thought like, oh, this is like that movie 42, the Jackie Robinson story. But the manager of the Dodgers who loved Jackie Robinson beat his wife and hated his kids. And you're like, oh, so this guy doesn't have good judgment. And so it's like really hard to like trust is like, yeah, I love Native Americans, but also I'm a terrible father and a screaming racist. So it's like your word doesn't matter to me. So like the message was like, oh, we need to respect Native Americans in their land. I'm like, okay, totally fine message. Like I'm into it, but it's like, oh, but you're a piece of shit. So it's like, why do I care what your message is?
And you're exploiting them.
Yes.
Look how sad they are in the corner of this room.
I mean,
meanwhile, I stake claims in their land that was stolen from them. It's like, what?
Yancey's a terrible character. I wish I got more of his son's character arc for loving the Native American girl and marrying her and starting a family and being like unashamed of it. You're like, well, that's the story, not his piece of shit dad who abandoned the family for
Who's an insane person.
He was around for what?
I'm going to start a town. I'm going to go start a new town. I'm going to go start a new town. Oh, I got sucked into the Spanish-American War. Oh, I'm going to go start a new town. I'm going to hug a torpedo.
He was around for 4 of 27 Sims years on this life. That's fucking garbage, dude. You're a piece of shit dad. You're a terrible husband. The message might be fine, but the messenger is
skewed.
This is garbage, dude. It's a 1.3. It's a generous 1.3. The only reason it's a 1.3 is because of where I've put Hulk. I should have put Hulk at a 0.7, and this should be a 0.8. It shouldn't even get the 1. Dude, this is awful. I hate this. I hate Yancey. I hate what this movie stands for, and I hate the Academy for putting this as a best picture. This is shit, dude. It's a bad fucking movie, and I hate it, and I hate that we watched it, and I think our podcast is worse off for having reviewed it. And that's my final thoughts in Laughable Logline.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, this podcast did take a shitty turn from the first 4 episodes. We were riding in like the average to above average realm. We come to a screeching halt, shockingly, at the best picture, quote unquote.
The best shitcher. It's shit. This movie.
Nice.
Yeah, I did that.
You guys should go enjoy the Oscars. It's coming up this weekend. We will be back on March 20th with, we had a lot of Native Americans in this movie. And guess what? We're coming back with what I am christening as the Indian block.
Love it.
You got a hint for the next movie we're watching?
You kind of said it, Indian block, and maybe they are in a storage container of sorts.
I love it. Head and gone.
There it is.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Please follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Just Play It Podcast. Please follow us on X at Just Play It Pod. And remember, if you are looking at the no man's land, you should definitely just carry out your demented, insane, hell-bent mission and manifest that destiny, baby. Tune in next time. We're watching The Native American in the Pantry. Good night, everybody.
Yo! He's just like, nah, give me your face.
Come on, boys.